Hey guys, welcome back to Coding Cabin's Intro to Python curriculum, and in this video we'll be looking at strings. Now strings are an extremely crucial and fundamental data type of nearly every single programming language, and they are very important to understand and be able to manipulate and use. So what are strings? Well, strings are just something that is either contained by single or double quotes. So you're probably thinking, what does that mean? But you've actually already used strings in your first coding example on Coding Cabin. This hello world is actually a string because it is something that is in between a single, in this case, or double quotes. So let's look at an example. So we're gonna name our first part coding and our second part, or second, equal to cabin. Now these are two ways of defining what this string is. So the first is coding, but this has double quotes, and the second is cabin and has single quotes. Now let's print out first and let's print out second. Maybe there's a difference. Nope, there's not a difference. In other programming languages, there will be some differences between the single quote and double quote, but in Python, there is not. I was personally trained, or I learned how to do it using double quotes, so that's what I'll be using throughout this lesson, but feel free to use single quotes if you find those easier. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is something we called string concatenation. Now, what is concatenation? Concatenation is basically just the combination of two strings. So to concatenate, we're going to use an addition sign to combine, in this case, coding and cabin. So let's look at that example again. So we have coding, and then we're going to have second equals cabin. And I'm going to print first plus second. I'm going to run this. Wait, I didn't get a space. And that is because Python does not automatically put a space there. Because Python doesn't know if coding is a word, it just knows that it is a string. It doesn't know where to put that space. You have to tell the computer where to put that space. So the way I can do this is I can go first plus, and I can physically add a space using a quote, spacing in between the quote, and then adding on the other side and going second, and let's see what happens. Nice, we got the space to work. So this is if you want to add spaces, and this plus sign is called, we call this concatenation. So we'll use this concatenation, and A to add space. Python, need to add space. Python does not do it for you. So those are pretty important remarks regarding concatenation. So some other stuff regarding concatenation. So I'm going to assign this to a variable. I'm going to do first, second, equals, and I'm just going to add in the space because I like the way the space looks. You don't have to, but I just like the way it looks. First, second, so this will be coding, space, cabin. Now I can send a message or write a message, and I can say, is a free online learning program for users to learn how to code. Period. And then I can print out first, second, plus message. And what should this print out? Nice. Coding Cabin is a free online learning program for users to learn how to code, which is correct. But I got that space in between coding cabin and is. These are two different strings, right? Yeah, I physically put a space right before the is, so whenever it would read message, it would be a space and then is. If I were to go like this, I would get this, but I could easily just in the last one as we added a space, and then we added extra addition, so we're adding or concatenating the first string with a space and the second string with that space. So coding cabin space is a free online learning program for users to learn how to code. So that's basically how string concatenation works. So another thing we can use in strings is called these escape characters, and one of them is what we would consider a new line. So if I print it out first, second, once again, as we've looked at a couple of times, I will get coding space cabin. But say I want a coding on one line and cabin on one line. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to print out coding cabin, and instead I'm going to use this thing called an escape character. I'm going to put a new line. Now you're probably thinking, okay, this looks weird. It's going to print out coding \n space cabin. No, it's actually going to do coding, create a new line, and then do a space cabin. Now I have to move this back for me to get coding cabin on two different lines. So as you can see, that's how a new line works. And I can also add multiple new lines. So I can just keep on adding them. Actually, I'm going to go less on them, but I could just keep on going. And as you can see, the amount of new lines I have here is the amount of spaces that I have here. And I have coding on one, cabin on the other. And I could put this, and look, it will be the same. And if I don't want the exclamation on that line, I could go like this. Now, this is pretty difficult to read, but they're very useful for doing quick new lines. What I can also do is I can insert a tab by doing /t, and I can go cabin. So let's see what that does. Alright, so it adds a bigger space, which is just a tab, and I can do multiple tabs. So I can do 3 tabs. Nice. Or I can do a new line, and then I can tab. So that will be off-centered. So I'm going to put a tab at the beginning here. So let's see what happens. Nice. So we can use those to move strings around on the console. So the next thing we're going to look at is if I want to get a specific character out of a string. So in this example, I'm actually just going to rename it to coding. I'm just going to rename it to A. And this is equal to coding cabin. Now, say I want the value of, or O. Say I want to just get that string O, and I just want to print it out. I want to print out O, but obviously I want to get it from coding cabin. So how can I do that? I can do A. I can use open brackets and close brackets, and I can go 0, 1, 1. This is the first one, and this is the second one. You may have heard me say 0, and you're just like, oh, I don't know, maybe he counts weirdly, but let's look. 1 and 2. Let's look. Why is it giving me a D? Well, that is because in computer science, we count starting at 0. So this first term, this C, is actually the 0th term. So I put 0 in there, and I can get C. So if I want that O, for example, I will put in 1, because that's the second or the first index, and I will get the O. And it will give me the exact way it is. And that's how I get the value of that string. And anytime we ever see these brackets, they basically means I'm getting something out of an array or out of a list, which is what a string is. A string is just an array of characters identified by a double quote or a single quote. So just as I'm able to get one character here, maybe I wanted to get a different one. Maybe I wanted to get 5. Let's see what that will print. Nice, it will print G, so that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Now, getting one character is useful and all, but what if I want a part of a word or a whole word or a part of a string? So I can use this thing called substring to be able to do that. In substring, the way it works is I can go A from 0 to, let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let me try that. I didn't get the full coding out of that. I'm wondering why that is. Well, in substring, position 5, this last number, is actually not included. So it's every integer that is less than 5. So in this case, it will be everything up till 5. So that will stop at 4. If I wanted to include the fifth one, I would put 6. And that's exactly what I can do to get coding out of it. And that's how I use substring to be able to get parts of a string. So say I were to go from 3 to 6, I could get ing, so 0, 1, 2, 3. The 3, the first one will start on whatever one you set it at, so 0, 1, 2, 3, that's the I. And then 4, which is the N, 5, which is the G, and 6 is the space, but I'm not getting the space because the space is 6 is the last index, or the last parameter that I put into the substring. So it will not give me that last term. So if I were to go like this, it would still give me ing. It would not give me that C. So you guys can test this out on your own. We'll give you a bunch of practice problems to really make sure that you guys understand substring and the way it works and how I can pronounce certain parts of a word. And it's really important to get a good grasp on how strings work, because we'll be using them throughout the Intro to Python curriculum, Intermediate Python, and the Advanced Python curriculum. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next one.